The first time it happened, I thought it was an accident. Tire tracks, deep and ugly, cut across the marigolds. I stood in my bathrobe at 6 in the morning, coffee cooling in my hand, staring at the wreckage like it was a body. You don't just plant flowers. You invest in them. You dig your hands into the earth, sweat dripping into roots. You name them, talk to them, love them. They were the only things that grew after she left. Her name was Claire, my ex-wife. We were married 9 years. That kind of history doesn't just leave it rots inside you like a buried thing that refuses to stay dead. She married him 6 months after the divorce papers dried. Darren. That's his name. Broad-shouldered, no neck, the kind of man who smiles with his teeth, not his eyes. He drives a monstrous black truck. Loud, stupid thing. The second time he tore through my garden, I caught the taillights. It wasn't an accident. I knocked on her door 3 days later. Calm. Polite. Still smelling of rosemary and rage. She opened it in silk, always silk now, like she was allergic to cotton. He stood behind her with that smirk like someone dared him to care. I told her what he'd done. Twice. Her lips curled, and she laughed, high and cruel. Men will be men, she said, tilting her head against his chest like I was some toddler whining over spilled milk. Then she added, "My new husband is a real man." That was the moment. Not the flowers, not the truck. That. The way she said it. Like I was small. Like I was a mistake she'd outgrown. I left without a word. But something shifted. I stopped tending the garden. Let the petals drop. I started watching. On the 5th night, I couldn't sleep. I stood by the window, rain tracing slow lines down the glass. The street was empty. Still. Then, at 2:13 a.m., the engine roared. The truck came barreling down the lane and swerved hard into my yard. This time, he didn't just clip the edge. He aimed for it. He took down the fence, flattened the tulips. Mud and splinters everywhere. Then he was gone. I stood in the dark, chest hollow, heart full. He'd declared war, and all I'd done was grow flowers. The next morning, I cleaned up. Not the garden, I buried it. Dug deep into the earth and laid steel under the soil, hidden just beneath the surface like quiet teeth. I wired the gate, reinforced the posts, and right in the center, I installed a strip of tire spikes, the kind you find behind warehouses. The trap was elegant, silent, ruthless. He came again the next night. Of course he did. Some men can't resist their own arrogance. 1:47 a.m. Headlights. The engine snarled like it had something to prove. I sat in the dark with a whiskey in one hand and the window cracked open. The truck rolled over the spikes, and for a moment there was silence. Then the scream of tearing rubber. The crunch of steel. A horrible clunk. And then his scream. I stepped outside barefoot. The night was cold, damp. Darren was on the ground, one leg twisted beneath him, the other soaked in something that wasn't rain. The spikes had done their job, more than his tires had shredded. He'd tried to kick the gate down when it didn't open. It had given way, but the reinforced post had snapped back like a spring-loaded jaw. He looked up at me, bleeding, confused, feral. "You psycho, what the hell did you do?" Claire arrived 10 minutes later. A neighbor must have called her. She ran to him barefoot, robe flying open. She took one look at the mess. The truck collapsed into my rose bed, Darren howling in the mud, and her face went pale. She turned to me like she was seeing me for the first time. You did this?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and gestured toward the garden. The wreckage. The fence. The silence. Let it speak for me. She swayed, hand over her mouth. Then she collapsed to her knees beside him. The cops came. Darren was taken to the hospital. No charges. He'd been trespassing. I'd fortified my own property. The officer looked at me with something close to respect. Not illegal, he said. Just smart. Claire never came back. Not to apologize. Not to explain. A week later, I saw a moving truck outside their place. 2 weeks later, the house was empty. I replanted the garden slowly, one row at a time. Lavender, snapdragons, black-eyed Susans. Flowers that take their time to bloom, that don't wilt in the cold. Sometimes I think about her about them. The way she laughed. The way he screamed. The way everything they thought they were came undone in a single night. But mostly, I think about the quiet, the peace. The fence still stands. The flowers are blooming again. Some things, once ruined, don't come back the same. They come back stronger,